Welcome to another Monday of
No One Gets Away With Anything.
Today with you we are
José Rafael Chaneri.
Arianna Lopez.
Et Adrien Keitelman.
Yeah.
Wow!
It feels so French now.
I had to put the accent. Yeah.
But we made it. He's my boyfriend. Ça c'est mon neni.
Mais oui.
He's our very, very special guest of today.
Es verdad, sí.
Sí.
We've been planning this for forever. And
Yes.
it's finally happening. I'm extremely happy. I'm extremely proud of my TV.
And I'm very excited to be here.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
before we begin, what are we not?
Experts.
We're not experts. We are students. Actually, the three of us study the same thing. We are students. We're not professionals. And so please, whatever we say about politics, about anything in this episode, just take it with a grain of salt. We aren't professionals. We don't pretend to be. Important thing to say, this episode is going to be mostly in English. A little bit of French, a little bit of Spanish out there.
Exacto.
I'll try.
It will be mostly in English, okay? So, who are you, sir?
So my name is Adrien Keitelman. That's with the English accent. It's a bit better. I'm 20-year-old. I study business and international relations in Madrid. I'm from Belgium and Switzerland. And a few other places, but those are the main passports.
Passport.
And I'm the boyfriend also of Arianna Lopez here.
¡Qué emoción,
Yes.
chiqui!
Mais oui.
Lo logramos, equipo.
Okay, so you study international relations as well as I do. What's your favorite topic, international relations-wise?
I think political theory or political science is really something I look forward to study.
And environmental politics. También. Come on,
Okay.
that's his field.
Environment. Oh, I have a really good question about environmental politics, just to piss you off. But I'll say that later.
Okay.
And what do you do with your life other than study university?
But mostly I do music. It's like my main hobby, I say. I try to do as best as I can, but it's like my way to exit the world and put like myself that I don't often like show to others into like my secret life, kind of.
Okay,
But
that's
I
awesome.
think like, come on, my question about your music and stuff is like, I feel like people do perceive you superficially like a rapper, comme ça. But
Wow.
I feel like I see way more than that because I know you and I know how it works. So if you had to like, come on, shortly explain your music to someone, right? How would you like go deep into that?
So first of all, it's French rap. That's like the most important. It's like lo-fi type of music, so very calm and chill. It's like more to listen on your own than at parties, and like it's kind of a deep, thoughts on like life, my own like personal thoughts. I've started also like doing it with like environmental issues, which I've always been very aware, and I've always wanted to talk about it. So it's a mix of every little bits of me that I really want to show through like a different universe,
I know that the French rap universe is very big, and it's very small to say that it's highly influential. I mean, it's a big part of French culture, their rap, and the amount of reach that it has inside of France, the ability that it has to convey, struggles inside of the country with the protests right now and everything. I've seen a lot about French rap. Like, if you follow, for example, Karim Benzema, you see like half of his stuff is about rap, and you find that most French people listen to rap. But I think that your type of rap is more like what I imagine or what I get in English from like I don't know from Michael Moore's "This Is Love."
Okay, yeah.
This love, the kind of music that's more centered towards an idea that you want to express, that isn't so much what you say. It's more lo-fi, right?
Exactly.
And then there's it's what I like when I listen. It's what I feel like when I listen to Mac Miller.
Okay.
Not his very excited songs, but his more chill songs where you're like, oh my god, the universe is moving around me. So I feel I've seen a couple of your videos and I really like them. But how did you get into making music?
So first of all, I've like both of my parents are art dealers, so I've always been surrounded in the art industry type of, and like I've always been into art. I've started with painting. I've done a lot of graffiti, and basically I had a big interest in the emerging of like hip hop art, and that kind of puts on different type of art together. So it's like hip hop, you know, like the music. It's like graffiti. There is breakdance, so like dancing, and like I'm very interested into like that culture of the 80s in like the Bronx, New York, and that is how I kind of move from like painting and like doing graffitis and sketches and everything to music, which I really like. Well, the first time I did some music with some friends at parties and started like rapping a bit, I was very much interested in that, you know. Like that's how it started, you know, everything.
And how's it going?
It's going pretty well. Honestly, I'm very happy. I must say it has been exponential. At least personally, I think it has grown like a lot since I've began. So like I began like, as I told you, rapping like with my friends, because I have like two of my very good friends that started music like quite young, and they got quite a lot of visibility. Like they had like a few like K, even 100K like on music and everything. So I always been very like interested in what they've been doing, and so I started freestyling a bit, and then like came my first song in like 2020. So it hasn't been that long that I've been doing music compared to other people or friends of mine that have been doing music since they're born. But since my first song of 2020, like I think now I have like 10 songs. I have one project that's already out and one that's coming very soon. I've done my first real clip videos, like worked and like very well like designed. And also this year I've done my first performance, which I must say I'm very happy with. I'm very happy with. And like what's funny is like I've started like doing performances, and even like people listening to me are not French like native speakers. And that's kind of like funny to say, because like part of my music is 80% of it for me, it's like the lyrics, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, we're starting in Madrid and hoping to go a bit further into international relations. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I mean, there must be something about your work. If some of your listeners aren't like native French speakers, your music must be transmitting something outside of the language that goes with that, you know? Also,
the thing is, like, our environment, where we study, naturally exposes us to like a very international environment, right? So whatever like we do, and I think it happens, for example, for us in the podcast, and I agree with your music, your audience becomes so international that like you somehow connect, you know, with something differently for everybody, you know, but it's like you have people that are close to you with things that are like connecting to you in different aspects, and that's the beauty of it, right? Because it's sort of like a network that expands. French rap is like what you always say, it's not the most, you know, popular genre out there. I had never listened to French rap before until him, right? So it's like, you know, it's a platform of exposure that's very perhaps more privileged in the beginning, right? Maybe in the future it's gonna
No, and I think it's a niche. You have your niche. It's you know, French rap and the lo-fi. I identify with lo-fi so much, because that idea of just, well, my girlfriend who's listening to us, she's audience today. She's over there taking pictures. We have the
whole gang today.
Yeah. And the dog. I mean, come on. But whenever we study, I just play the lo-fi girl.
Okay.
100% of the time. And I am the kind of person who needs a little bit of background music to listen to. But even when I want to get into music, like the times where I'm really invested in a song or an artist and I have them like going in the back of my head, it's the lyrics.
Like coming on to that is basically how I started. You know, I've always seen my music as like, you know, I'm putting on my thoughts, and like I prefer having one person to listen to like that music and thinking about it and be in their like mood or like zone, you know, in order for them to like feel like they're in a bubble. Then like multiple people listening to it and just like enjoying the music without understanding or, you know, getting the whole concept of it, you know. And that's why I prefer, like, I always say I prefer people listening like to my music in their room or alone, and that's how I perceive it, you know.
Okay.
So like,
and how do you think it has evolved? Because we've spoken about this before. Okay. It's like music is not the same now than it was, like, you know, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because Twice found his style.
Oh my God.
I mean, coming on to the point I just made is like, I think at the beginning it was a bit too much my own thoughts and like what I'm trying to like express without a structure or something. Like I had Basically, I had a few songs that were talking about everything I had in my mind. And music allowed me to kind of structure, first of all, myself and also my songs. In which now I have like songs that are attributed to kind of every subject. And also, there's more dynamism. You know, before it used to be like, if you listen to my music, the first one used to be like kind of me whispering in a mic, you know, and like giving some very slow thoughts, and like it's very like love listening to them, but it's very hard for a public or an audience to listen to that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has developed the most in my music, is that I managed to get more people to recognize themselves into music, and that's I think the biggest advice I've received throughout my music is like, if you want people to listen to you, you need people to recognize themselves into your thoughts. But the question is, how do you put your own thoughts for people to recognize yourself without being too mainstream? Because, you know, I do music for myself and I don't do it to become famous or anything like that. So I was into a bubble for a year into thinking like, okay, I want people to see themselves and kind of be like, oh, okay, I have the same thoughts. I feel the same sometimes. So I want to listen to that and to differentiate that between like, okay, that's average like feeling. I don't feel the same as that. Maybe a few, you know, thoughts.
Yeah,
but
getting
it's not the
identified with the music is really
exactly.
important. I have one thing that I agree with a lot. I've been going to therapy for a long time, and my therapist has made me realize that one of the ways that I organize my mind is through podcasting. Like, I do this podcast, I do my own podcast, and then my girlfriend and I do podcast night every once in a while, and we record each other having a conversation just so we can hash it out. You know, like I was listening to another podcast. I always recommend it, Chris Williamson's Modern Wisdom, that when you have a feeling, it's like a fart. You know, it's like a smell that's somewhere in the air, and you kind of know that it's there, but it's undefined. And having a conversation, making a song, doing something to express those feelings makes it solid, makes it something you can stare at, clean. I don't know,
Understand.
Yeah, and another friend of mine was like, you know, I want to start doing TikTok, but I don't know if people would like my content. And she like, do you have any advice for me? She put like in her private Instagram stories, and I sent her a message and I said, do not make content for anybody else but yourself. If you're making content that isn't for you, that isn't to make your life, you know, more livable, if it isn't something that you're doing for yourself, at some point you will care more about yourself than other people, and you'll stop doing it. And that's totally, absolutely fine if you want to stop. But if your goal is to create something that's beautiful and that you want people to listen to, then you gotta love doing it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's very hard to define the boundaries into what do you like to do for yourself, and then what do you want to do for, like, how do you want others to see it? You know, it's like, from the moment, for example, with music, from the moment I started sharing my music on the platforms, you know, you acknowledge the fact that people are going to listen to you. And if you want them to listen to you, you also have to be able to balance yourself into like that zone and atmosphere, and then what people are going to want to listen to.
Yeah,
so it's very hard.
It's making the experience more relatable for the listener, and that's kind of like the same thing that's happened to our podcast. Like, you have to evolve as you do it, and you get better at doing it. Like, we've changed a lot of stuff from the beginning of doing our podcast, but I think that it's also that I personally like the evolving part. Like, I've always told Ari that I love it. Like, people text me like, oh, you need to fix this about the podcast because I didn't like this, and like I say, oh yeah, you're watching an episode that I recorded a month ago. And this month, I already fixed that. And I'm already, like, when somebody sends me that and I already fixed it, it's like, yes, I'm there. I'm getting the curve, you know. It's really nice.
Yeah. But now, another thing that's really interesting about what you said before, it's like, I remember you once told me that your parents offered you to go to art school, right? And you were like, no, thank you. And like, I feel like that's a dream of so many kids, of being like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to regular school. I want to go study arts. But the parents are like, that's not a true like career. So why the fuck did you decide to do that?
So, of course, like I was very lucky to have the possibility of wanting to choose what I want to do. And the thing with art is I've always been a kind of disruptive kid. Like, during my whole like school experience. Like I had a blast and I was enjoying it, but like I was very disruptive and I didn't know where to put my own thoughts. And art was always the way for me to do what I want, create whatever I want, whatever I have in my mind, and to put it on a piece of paper. Because I started as I told you, like sketching and painting, and it's always been like something I needed to do in order to like get out of the like, you know, the whole your universe, you know, and to get into your own personal like thoughts and bubble. And then I don't know, I just felt like every time I did art, I did better when I did it for myself than when I did it for school. Because for example, like for IB, I chose art and I loved it and I did very good. Like my teacher were really happy with me, but like I didn't want to have this like focus of having to do art, you know? And it's the same with music. It's like, I like being able to do it when I want, when I feel like it, when I feel like writing. And I think it has a totally different connotation when you have to do it for work. Because for example, I have like my friend in New York, she studies also neuroscience, and I have a song with her, Chloe. Shout out to her. And like she tells me like she has a lot of friends like that are just doing like music, and they're doing a few concerts and a few events, and they're doing very good, but like they have to produce like a certain amount in order to live. And when you have to make art in order to like get food in your plate, it's not the same as like doing it just for yourself as your side hobby, you know? It's like I always say it's my side hobby, but like I treat it as it's the only thing I do sometimes. You know? It's like
a hobby can be vital, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, but some people, I feel like sometimes they don't know the line, you know? It's like, oh, you do music for a hobby, or you do a podcast for a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, it's like a hobby doesn't
have a seriousness
connotation of exactly, you know?
I think it's like a sport for me, in the sense that if you stop doing physical activity, there will be serious repercussions to your health. I feel like if I stop podcasting, it'll have serious repercussions with my mental health. Like it just puts me straight, man. And if I stop, the same thing, like I have a lot of hobbies. I do a lot of stuff. And I get what you mean about the music, because if you make me read something for university, I have to get it on a PDF and listen to it, because if not, I'm not going to finish. Like I have to read 20 pages a week, and it's like, I can't, but I read 15 pages of a book in an hour, 20 minutes, no problem. And I don't, it's precisely that. There's some aspect of it that gets poisoned if you just have to do it because somebody's like stepping on your neck, like, hey, hand me in this song for tomorrow or you're dead. Like, no, I understand. That's why a lot of people get that. And in Europe, there's that thing where work is something you do because you need to live, and then everything else that you do outside of work is your actual life.
Yeah, basically.
And then, like, one thing is, like, we always speak about balance, you know? I'm a really unbalanced person for some things, right? Sometimes I do too much of the eggs and then I don't do anything and then I go crazy. And then he's like, you have to stop, you know? And, like, evaluate your priorities, right? And I think that's something you've had very clear since, you know, relatively young age. And I think that's why you're able to, like, discern between, okay, I want to go to Madrid, I want to study, like, you know, business, international relations, and I like, you know, this. I can also do my music, and I can also have my free time, and this is my life, you know? And if you're not agreed with it, good for you, but this is what I want. And I find that so fucking hard, and that's something I admire so much from you. So yeah, it's very interesting, and I think it's an amazing quality that you have also. No,
Mi amor. That's why I love this person, basically.
Arianna's the kind of person that sees the best in people, and you do. It's really good about you. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, so we can get into some other questions because that's really awesome. So you have a pretty dominant side, like in general, you're a dominant person. And Arianna, we've talked about your personality before. You're pretty, you know, what do you call this? Agreeable. Yeah, you're pretty agreeable. So I have more or less the same problem. My girlfriend's pretty agreeable. Okay, not always. She can be feisty as well. We'll have her on some other time. You'll see. But I can be pretty disagreeable. Like I can debate pretty well and I can have a pretty hard conversation.
Eres una ladilla, en
soy
otras
una puta
palabras.
ladilla. Soy una ladilla.
Yo no sé, cariño,
Tipo-
siempre estoy contigo.
Like my girlfriend has physically told me like, do you know how fucking hard it is to argue with you? And I'm like, yes, I do. I do it to myself too. So like, how do you control that? You know, the not winning an argument because you want to win the argument, but like letting the other person get a word in and actually have a conversation.
I think it's the hardest thing to do ever.
Yeah.
With this little
It's
angel
like-
over here.
I mean, it's legit. It takes like time and effort, I think, to be able to like set yourself and be like, okay, I need to listen. And, you know, it's like, I'm not always right. And I think for that, we seem like having similar opinions, you know, but it's like for relationships and especially like for my like first real relationship, you know, it's like, I've understood that it's, you know, the point is not to be right or wrong, you know, it's to find a compromise, you know.
Exactly.
But okay, I'm also gonna say like I sound like the perfect boyfriend, but that's not how I am. It's like, like I know what to do, but I don't do it, you know.
Well, you're working on it.
But it's like the thing
weird.
is, she is very agreeable and she's amazing. Like sometimes she would do things I wouldn't do for her, but also vice versa, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I think if we are not able, you know, to find this like middle ground, then it's impossible for any relationship to work. You know? So I think it's just self-control, honestly, like being able to like tell yourself to like breathe,
calm down,
exactly.
and breathe.
But it's like with relationship, like love relationship, but like friendly relationships, like, you know, families and everything. Like I've always had that problem of like not being right. You know, it's like when I was 10, I was like, I'm better than everyone, and I've always like keep up that mentality, you know.
One of his other concerns for today was like, I'm scared to be too cocky.
Exactly. It's like you asked me to talk about myself.
It happens to you too.
Yeah, I was like,
it happens to everyone. Like,
it happens to everyone.
It's mental masturbation, you know. Sometimes when I talk in the podcast, I'm like, maybe I'm just like being super, you know, talking too much about the things that I know and that I like to talk about, and using the information that I know and shutting everyone up. And it can feel bad sometimes, but at the same time, it's like, I'm awesome.
But you know, the one thing about the different personalities is that when we have an argument or whatever, like sometimes I get too affected by things without really understanding them, right? And then they come off very aggressively, right? And I think, one of the things that our relationship has taught me is the fact that, you know, there's a background for feelings, and people don't always are guilty for your feelings. You can also have part of the responsibility for the way that you feel. And that's not something I understood before. Because for me back home, it was like, if I'm sad, first my mom is going to notice before I even tell her. So I don't have to explain it to anyone. She's going to be like, why are you sad? And then she's going to look for the reasons until she thinks she finds the one. And then I'm like, fair enough, you're right. Yeah. He's not a magician of it. And he's not supposed to be. I'm the one who should be able to be like,
communicate.
Okay, I am sad because of this, and this is what I need from you. And I think it would be selfish for me to expect for him to always like predict anything that's going on with me when it's hard for me to know.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. Yeah.
I've had the experience of having to understand when my girlfriend's having a problem, and like she can close off a lot sometimes, and I have to be like, I ask her, are you okay? What do you want to eat? And I have to like, you know, take it out of her for a little bit. And I've told her like, look, I don't mind doing it, but like you have to work on telling these too. And she has, and she's gotten really good at it. But we've talked a lot about there's this cycle of relationships where you have the peace times, okay, which is like honeymoon stage. And then you have resentment stage, which is the part where you're still okay, but you're starting to like gather up stuff that you're like, oh my god, I hate when this person does this, or like I wanted him to do the dishes. And then you gather up resentment, and then you go to the fight phase where you're like in that time where you argue like 4 times in 1 week, and you're like, oh my god, I don't want to argue, but like it's happening a lot and you don't know what to do. The arguing part, the resentment part, those are totally normal parts of a relationship.
And they're annoying to me.
They're annoying,
but they have to be there.
But they have to be there. The question isn't really how much you argue. Okay, it's how good you are at putting the pieces back together. We were talking before the show about The Diplomat. You know?
Exactly.
And in a point, she says like, "Oh my God, my marriage has failed, or is failing, or whatever." And it's like, it's so ironic because it's like, I'm the living embodiment. She's a diplomat, okay? So she says, my profession is literally the living embodiment that there isn't anything that you can't talk yourself out of. But my marriage is failing, and I should just be able to sit down and talk about it. The definition, I think, of what a successful relationship is your ability to put the bad things behind you and get yourself to move forward. And the other day with my girlfriend, we had an argument, and we were talking, and she was upset because I did something that I usually do that I did wrong. Okay, and it's something that I'm working on, but I'm not very good at working on it either, so it's pretty hard. And she was super like upset, and I told her like, you know, it's okay. I've got 60 years to fix this. And she like, she calmed down immediately. Because it's like, if I'm in a relationship, if I'm in a serious relationship, I'm looking for the future. I'm not like kidding around. So like in my mind, I literally have 60 years to fix this. Like essentially, like ideally, I'm gonna fix it in less than 60 years. But like I told her that, and she was like, "Okay, that gives me a little bit more perspective." And I think that's the key. If you get perspective in those moments, you can bear anything.
I mean, yeah, it's also like one of the last, it's not arguments, but like situations that we had. Come on, it was sort of, it felt like a hole that like I couldn't get out of it, and then, you know, he felt like he was right, I felt like I was right, and we had to speak about it like 1,500 times. It was super never ending.
Which one was it though?
Attends, listen. And then we sit down, and I tell him like, I just feel that I need to vent. And when I vent out to you, it goes out wrong. And then he was like, but why don't you talk to someone? And I was like, yeah, I talked to my mom and my friends. He's like, no. Why don't you go to therapy? And I was like, I was so shocked that he was right and that I thought about it. But the fact that he told me like that, it was really shocking in the moment. But then it was like, this is actually the healthiest thing that I can do. You know, and it was a bit of like the compromise, the understanding. And also, for me, it was really hard to accept that he was right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like coming up to that, it's like, I think just in general in the world, a lot of people underestimate the positive effect of like therapy, and just the fact of talking someone completely unrelated to, you know, your life, you know, in general. And personally, I hated doing therapy because when I was young, I did therapy for quite a while, and like now that I look back, it's the best thing that happened to me. Like being able to like, you know, express myself and just be the way I needed to be in order to, you know, feel better was amazing. And like I had like for 3 years therapy until I was 13, like 14, because I got kicked out of my school and I was a mess. And like
that's probably a good story.
It was needed, you know. And I saw that like that therapist like 2 years after that, and she told me, she was like, I'm very happy to see that now everything is good for you. And I said like, you know, I remember going in PJs to your place because I didn't want to go and I was forced to go, but it was for the good, you know, of the best. And I went to hers because I had like a little argument with my mom, and I thought we needed to like figure that out. And like I won the argument.
Okay, I was right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, it's very important, and a lot of people like underestimate it. So might as well promote it in a good way, you know, and you know, see the benefits of it. And how has the therapy been so far?
It's been amazing.
Yeah, we my girlfriend, her and I go to the same therapist.
Oh, you guys are going now?
Not the same therapist, but to the same place.
Like,
okay.
We've been going since before you were going. She's been going.
I didn't know she was going too.
Yeah.
I know you were going.
Because we were having a conversation, and it was like, hey, I've been going through your therapist for a while. It's pretty good. And she was like, oh, I have this problem communicating with you sometimes, and I don't know what to do about it. And I was like, therapy. And she was like, oh, mate, I'll think about it. And she took a while to think about it. I think she talked to her mom about it, and she was like, well, you know, I can try it out.
Sure.
And at the beginning, she didn't really like it that much. She was like, I don't think I like her. And then one day it clicked, and it worked pretty well so far.
For me, it was like, I'd been thinking about it for a while, but I didn't have like a reason why, you know? Come on, it was in my head and stuff. But after he told me that, I was like, you know what? It's the time. And it was literally that day I called you, and I was like, give me the phone number, dude. I'm just gonna get this done.
I remember I sent you the webpage. Let's sponsor them for a bit. Like
See.
Psicolink are pretty
The
good.
mental health of this podcast is in their
it's
hands.
really important. Like we were talking about my other podcast, Dare to Think, and most of my episodes that aren't about like figures are stuff that I discovered in therapy.
Okay, fair enough.
And the one thing I've noticed, and I talked about it with my therapist the other day, it's like I don't have to talk about like a problem with her, but now when I face it, I think about her, and I like it's a completely different way. So it's like I see my thoughts, and I'm like, wait, don't speak. Wait a second.
Yeah, I've discovered stuff in in therapy, like relationship to myself, relationship to food, how I put my limits with people, how I have friendships with people who I feel comfortable, I don't feel comfortable with, etc. And it's crazy. Like you think that you are not interesting, and then you go to therapy, and they're like, oh yeah, there's stuff about me. There's some substance there.
But I mean, therapy, I see it like in different like ways, you know. There's like the classic going to see someone to talk about it, but like as we mentioned before, for example, podcasting, or for me like music, it's my way of like not like having to see a therapist, but talking to myself. And you know, it's like since I put my thoughts together and every song is about like a similar thought, you know, it's like I managed to understand myself way better. Like, and it's really I've been feeling so much better like since I've managed to put words in what I think and like structure it and like, you know, say that okay, that day, like for example, I wrote a beautiful song for her, okay, and I wrote this song I wrote a lot of songs for her, but like this song is very important for me because I wrote it after an argument we had.
It was an argument that I was speaking about.
Exactly. We had like, we don't have big arguments, but it was like one, you know, you really don't like, and like you just want to make it better, but it is going to take a bit of time, you know? And so I came back home and I remember like just writing all night and writing. And the thing is, I write like maybe 5 songs and I shrink it to 1, you know? It's probably like you doing the podcast, you know? It's like, and like after writing it and like listening to like my lyrics and what I said and then like putting on like a beat, you know, it's like it made me understand a few things about like what I've done wrong, you know, how I see, you know, the problem, what is the exact problem. And it's amazing, you know. That's also why I love doing music. And she can tell you like sometimes I'm like, okay, I need like a weekend where I like just write my thoughts and I need to, you know, let it out.
Yeah, well, whenever we're between episodes, I go and play the guitar for a bit because it just recharges my energy for a bit. Like being able to play something, sing something, produce something into the world. I always feel, and this is probably not the best thing, but I always feel a little bit of pity for people that don't know how to write properly. Because writing something is so amazing. Like being able to put something in paper, even if it's like a poem or a paragraph or an essay or a sentence, whatever. When people don't know how to like express their feelings properly, you see it in their writing. Like I have students who are pretty articulate with their feelings, and then they give you a text that they wrote, and it's like, whoa. You can feel the levels of intelligence and emotional capacity in their writing. And that when you find somebody who's a lot more shy, a lot more reserved, etc., and is not necessarily shy, but like can't express their feelings properly, you see it in their writing. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, my dad, for example, is a really good cook.
Okay,
he's a plastic surgeon, but he's a really good cook, and you can see when he's cooking. He's just in the zone, man, and he's doing his thing. And I wanted to tell you that there was this quote that I freaking love, which is, give a man a why, and it doesn't matter what the how is. He'll crawl over broken glass and fire to make that happen. And it's so true. Like, if you have that thing that motivates you, it doesn't matter what's in the middle. Like, you can get fucking through it. No problem.
But that's one of also the things that I admire the most, I think. Come on, that you have something that you love. And that you like, you know, that you work for, and that you want to be good at. That's something I really admire from you. And it's that, and that you also are very aware of your needs sometimes. You know, it's like, look, I need this from you. And that makes, I think you're super emotionally smart when you do that. It's like my Mick. He knows what he needs.
my brother.
I want to be able to do that.
I mean, it's not like I know what I need. It's just I've tried so much to understand myself, you know, that like I'm more aware of what will be like good in certain in certain situations, exactly, you know. And so like the thing is, sometimes with so much confidence of okay, that's what I need, like sometimes I don't say the right things and I don't need that exactly. But it's true that like it often helps when, you know, you're sure of what you need, and then at least like it's done, you know, no more questions. It's like I need this and you get this, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been learning how to put limits to people, because it's very difficult for me to say no sometimes. But yeah, we've talked about this before. We were overachievers when we were younger, and we would do 12,000 things and say yes to everything, and we would have a social life, sleep, get good grades. Yeah. And nowadays, I've gotten to put some limits and saying no to things. But my problem is that I get runaway excitement. When I get excited about one thing, it gets contagious on everything that I'm doing. And it's positive in a way, but then things get out of my hands. And like, I end up like at a party at 4 a.m. like, wait, I was studying. I was really excited about the test. And it's fucked up. But I wanted to ask you something else, because like one of the things that we study a lot of politics, and we are interested in many things. But you told me a little bit of nugget about your history that I found really, really, really interesting. Can you elaborate? Can you tell me the story a little bit more?
Okay. So basically, my dad was born in Israel, and so I have family there also, and doesn't have to do anything in that, but I'm Jewish, so it like, you know, it's like the whole mixture of it, you know, in one pot.
Every single possibility that you could have gotten in there, you had.
So yeah, I often get asked about, you know, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict,